The Acropolis of Athens in Greece is perhaps the most iconic monument in the country, and the image of its legendary Parthenon has inspired reproductions throughout not just the ancient past, but through the ages to the present day, where neoclassical architecture still looks to it for inspiration. However, archaeological evidence shows that the site's habitation goes back further than that, with artifacts dating back to the Neolithic Age. This habitation proceeded on from there, with the Bronze Age forebears of the ancient Greeks, the Mycenaeans, having built walls there around 1300 BC, and was the first fortifying of the hill. Those walls are believed to have been used up until the time of Pericles, a fierce advocate of democracy who was in charge of the city during its zenith of power. He sponsored the several temples and walls we now know the Acropolis for, after its destruction in 480 BC during the Persian Wars. Following the Golden Age of the city, often called the Age of Pericles, the site changed with history, first becoming a church during the Roman Empire, then a mosque when conquered by the Ottoman Turks, and finally an armory and subsequent ruin when the black powder that was stored there was ignited during a siege of the city by the Venetians in 1687, exploding and destroying much of the site. Today the site is known as a major hub for tourists from all over to teleport back in time to the world of ancient Greece through guided tours. The depth of the archaeological work that has gone into the Acropolis is its own century-spanning drama, with the first excavations and renovations coinciding with the birth of the newly independent Greek nation in 1833, with the new government first declaring it an archaeological site and then promptly removing previous Ottoman fortifications used in fighting during the War of Independence. From that point on, the works on the Acropolis became a guiding beacon for the fledgling country, independent for the first time in 4 centuries, to look back to Greece's classical age, before the influences of Rome or the Ottomans had their sway. These works would go for decades, with statues from the Archaic period being found as well as the first attempts at renovation, which began in the 1880s. Unfortunately, the limited experience in archaeological renovations at this time meant that these efforts eventually ended up doing more harm than good, as the steel beams used to try to support the columns ended up corroding and damaging the stonework. These damaging beams have since been replaced by titanium ones, as have more natural options since been employed to more closely match the original materials used during the classical construction. During this time, the Great Excavation began, which went all the way down to bedrock and found what is called the Persian debris, which originates from the Acropolis before the Persians razed it twice during the Persian Wars. The eventually triumphant Athenians would return and completely clear the debris that couldn't be repurposed to shore up defenses, which can still be seen today and laid the foundation for the complex that most think of. As decades bled into centuries, the site had undergone extensive works, and with ever-increasing complexity and interdisciplinary approaches, repairs, until finally in 2009, the Acropolis Museum opened its doors to the public for the first time, featuring the original sculptures that have now been replaced by exact replicas on the site. Its renovations continue to this very day, a constant fight against the ravages of time. The Acropolis has always been a fortress meant to defend the city of Athens, and it is only fitting that it still stands as a bitter battleground against a foreign power to this very day. This time, the wars waged through the centuries between Greece and the consistent boogeyman of any country that might feel entitled to their own cultural history, the United Kingdom. This fight traces its roots back to 1803, when the then British ambassadors to the Ottoman Empire, Thomas Bruce, Lord of Elgin, took it upon himself to rescue various parts of the statues and friezes from the Parthenon and took them back to London, an act that, while popular with the British public, was decried by contemporaries such as Lord Byron, who himself would later die fighting for Greek independence. Lord Elgin was forced to defend himself, claiming he was rescuing the art from Napoleon, who would never go to Greece, and that he bought them from the local Ottoman authority. Since then, the nation of Greece has routinely requested for the return of what is today called the Elgin marbles, from its earliest days of independence through to the modern day. The point is contentious enough, in fact, that the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, canceled a scheduled meeting with his Greek counterpart after hearing that there were frustrations about the marbles still being held in the British Museum.